So here we are back on the official independent chart sofa.
Yeah, it's very comfortable.
It's lovely, isn't it?
It's like a very old friend, the old independent chart. Yeah.
A slight niff coming off it. We're joined by the man behind the wheel. That's my little Depeche Mode in joke. Daniel Miller. Thanks for coming, Daniel.
Pleasure.
Thanks for cruising across London to join us here. So we're talking about independent music. We're celebrating independent music. You are now back, kind of crowned as the king of independence.
Well, I don't know about the king of independence, but I'm back as an independent for sure. Yes.
I mean, it's kind of so timely that Mute, the amazing label that you run, you've done both sides of the fence. You've been independent, you've teamed up with a major, and now you're back and fully independent.
Yes, fully independent, and excuse me. We were independent for about 25 years, almost 25 years, and joined up with EMI for 6 or 7 years, and now back independent again.
Cool. And so how old is Mute now?
33 years.
Whew. Nearly as old as me.
I know. It's difficult for me to say, but yeah, 33 years.
So kind of setting the scene, what year was that?
78.
78. Okay, so let's head back to 1978 and London, 1978. What was the kind of record label scene at the time? Majors, indies, artists.
Well, I mean, it was, everything had started about a couple of years before during punk. Really, that everything had changed. The way that people listened to music, what they wanted from music, who was making the music, all the structures was kind of year zero really for the industry in many ways. And I'd been, when punk started, I was really interested in punk really, and the music partly, but also the movement and the sort of and the attitude really. And I kind of got bored with the music quite quickly because it really, in a way, it should have been a lot more forward-looking, but actually it was just a lot of it was just sped-up pub rock, really. I mean, obviously the Pistols' lyrics were fantastic, but musically it wasn't that incredible. Do you know what I mean? And then I started. So that was and then sort of around 77 really. Quite a few people had started small labels, not really started labels, but started to put out their own records. There was a band. The most public of those at the time was a band called the Desperate Bicycles, and they put out their own record and they distributed it by Bicycle. But the thing was, they actually did a piece in the Melody Maker or Sounds or something, which is basically how to make your own record.
Yeah,
and that was and having spoken to a lot of people after, later on, that article really changed things for a lot of people.
What were you actually doing, sort of, as a job when you read that article?
I was a film editor or assistant film editor, technically speaking, an assistant film editor, which I'd kind of done on and off for a few years. I'd been working freelance, and I'd been in bands for a long time as a guitarist and been really frustrated because I wasn't really any good and I couldn't really express what I wanted to do. And I was very into sort of electronic music, krautrock stuff and experimental electronic music, and I'd also done some DJing as well. So I'd been involved in music was my first love really. I just hadn't at that moment really found a way in, and the punk in a way was my way into making music.
Was it kind of quite daring at that time and quite different? If you were saying it to your friends or your parents, yeah, I'm setting up a record label, would that be seen as a kind of quite a adventurous step?
Well, I don't know really. I wasn't setting up a record label. I wanted to put out my own record really. Yeah. That was it. That's all I had. That's the only expectation I had, was to make a record. I wanted to make an electronic record because I was really into. I thought electronic music in a way was much more punk rock than rock music was, and that's what I wanted to do. So
you were putting out your own record, Warm Leatherette, and things like that.
Right, yeah.
To start off with.
Well, that was it really. Warm Leatherette and TVOD, which was 1 7-inch single.
And you were kind of in that record, you were kind of launching or helping to launch synth pop and that whole thing that turned into Depeche Mode. And
yeah, I mean, it was a funny old time because it sort of came out roughly sort of spring 78. I don't remember what day it was, and then within a couple of months there was the first Cabaret Voltaire single, the first Human League single. There was stuff from America, like Tuxedo Moon. And it's obviously all this thing, it was like brewing in the background, and it was just at that moment, it was kind of a historical moment. It was part of the, it's sort of almost like a historic inevitability that was going to happen. It was a combination of punk rock, opening up opportunities. All those people were fans of sort of a kind of, krautrock and electronic music, Kraftwerk and stuff beforehand.
Yeah.
Cheap synthesizers and cheap recording equipment had started to come out around, and all that kind of came together. And the result is just in those few months was quite a lot of really important releases. And Robert Rental and Thomas Lear, Throbbing Gristle.
Were you kind of surprised you were putting out your own record, and then you were like, oh, flipping heck, everyone else is doing it now? And
well, I was pleased because I thought, I suppose mine was one of the first, but that's not really that important. The thing was that it felt like we'd gone past sort of punk rock, and a lot of the energy from that was going into making new music and people, making music even more accessible to make than it had been before.
And were you selling a lot of records from the off?
Well, it's weird, really. It got really good reviews, the first single. Because I'd gone into the Rough Trade shop, the original one on 202 Kensington Park Road, and I just said, oh, would you like to buy a few records? I got some test pressings, and I was driving around a few shops saying, oh, do you want to buy? So I didn't know about distribution or anything like that. And I played it to, they said, yeah, let's have a listen then. And it was Jeff Travis was in the shop, and he said, oh yeah, that's really good, let's distribute it. So I said, okay. It was like, that was it really. And there was a white label run it, in the shop, and they'd been playing it in the shop, and there was a sounds journalist who'd picked up on it and wrote an amazing review of it, which I couldn't quite believe, because I thought nobody was going to like it. So it did sell well. By today's standards, it would have probably been, it got good reviews, and then I started getting a lot of requests for imports from overseas, and so it did sell. It wasn't a hit, but it sold enough enough for me to think about, actually, should I do something in the more long term?
So how did you, there are a lot of artists that have set up their own labels and the other way around, label owners that become artists. How did you kind of morph from artist into label owner, and at what point did you kind of think, right, I better give my own career a bit of a halt to concentrate on the business?
Well, I never really thought I was going to be a full-time musician. I just thought that I'd put one record out and then I'd go back to doing what I was doing before. But the weird thing was at the time, was that people started to send me demos as though I was a label, even though I didn't think of myself as a label, because my address was on the sleeve. And I started to get demos, and I thought, this is really weird. People are sending me, and I just like, I've never experienced anything like it. So, and I thought they were good, but there's nothing that I really fancied that much. And then I made a kind of a decision that I would actually go and look for something in a bit more of a positive way, rather than be so passive about it. And there's a friend of mine called Edwin Pouncey, who's a writer, and also Savage Pencil. He was a Savage Pencil. He was a cartoonist in the NME at the time. And there was a guy living in his flat, a guy called Fad Gadget, and I think he was trying to get rid of him. So trying to get him a record deal, so he had some money so he could leave the flat. Anyway, he came and played me some of the Frank Tovey, his name was, some of the demos, and that was the first thing that I really, really thought was great, and I met Frank, and we got on really well. I had a very similar idea, so I said, well, let's put a single out, and that was the first. It wasn't a signing exactly, because we never had a contract, but that was the first artist really on Mute that launched the label in a way.